Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Maureen Blanford, and I'm VP of Marketing here at GiveSmart, and we have a really terrific program teed up this afternoon. So welcome to all of you. Trying times for sure, but unlike our webinars from even 3 or 4 weeks ago, which feels kind of a lifetime, doesn't it? We're starting to see some bright lights, and we couldn't not share. So today is the third episode in our Pivot Success series in the hopes that we can all continue to inspire each other in the art of the possible. Today we are joined by 2 board members from the Soaring Owls Foundation who've stopped by to share their story, Kristen Woodward and Wes Finger. Thanks to both of you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yep, thanks for having us.
Fabulous. Also with us today are our very own Catherine O'Brien. She's our GiveSmart Customer Success Manager who has been supporting their team. And GiveSmart's Head of Customer Insights, Patrick Clore. Catherine, Patrick, thanks also to both of you for joining.
Absolutely.
Hey, guys.
All right, so we will have, throughout the program, we will have some resources for you all in the chat section. Go ahead and ask questions throughout the program. I've asked the team today if they can hang out and answer questions when we're done. If we don't get to everyone's question today, we will definitely follow up with you after the program. So before we get started, let's just take the pulse on how everyone is feeling. And Kelsey, we could probably populate the poll. So how are you feeling? Are you thinking, now what? 2020. Let's get going. High level.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, Kristen and I are both from the foundation, a foundation that was created from a budget standpoint for our local and public school bowling. Like public faced with the gap between public schools budget and what they really need students to thrive. Tries to fill that gap by getting donations and support, financial support.
Quite a bit. So we got 10% that are still feeling perhaps, paralyzed by circumstances. More than half, I think, about 2020, and about a third kind of moving into the new normal. Does this resonate from what you're seeing with customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So even though there is a lot of concern with what's going on in the world right now, I think it's so inspiring to watch clients defy adversity and continue to fund their mission. So I think this is totally fantastic that people are starting to get on the board with it.
Great, perfect. All right. Then with that, before we dig into the agenda, I just want you joining today, or folks who are maybe watching the recording, that moving forward, we will have 2 streams of resources and sharing customer successes on both. So we'll have resources that you've probably seen a lot of from GiveSmart, where we're supporting you and pivoting from a live event to virtual. But then you will start to be hearing more from us, a program called Outside the Room, which will be both resources and a community of fundraisers who, in circumstances, have to start thinking about, okay, how can we get donors engaging all year round, and what do we can't have an annual event because they're so important. But so watch for both of those. All right, now for today, we're going to talk about how Soaring Owls found their path forward. We'll talk about the fundraising components. We'll definitely talk about communication and social, because this is a thread from the folks who have made the pivot and are coming close or meeting their goals from their plan A. We'll talk about donor reactions, because I think it's really important. Soaring Owls is going to share with us their results compared to what their Plan A goals were, and then Patrick will be jumping in throughout the program. But at the end, Patrick will be looking at the data here, so we can see what we can learn from it in moving forward. All right, with that, let's get started. So, Kristen, your event was March 21st. When did you know that you weren't going to be able to have an in-person event?
So we knew probably about 10 days in advance that we weren't going to be doing it in person. We had found out that the Atlanta Public Schools were going to be shutting down, and felt like it wasn't going to be appropriate to have, a school event when the school was shut down. And usually our event brings about 200 people in, so we weren't quite to that point of social distancing yet, but that just also was not looking like it was going to be a good thing to have that many people in a room together. So we pretty much made the decision on March 12th. It took us a couple of days and several meetings and several discussions and planning sessions to kind of figure out, okay, what actually is our communications plan? I think that was really the most important part of it, was that we knew that we needed to have all the pieces in place and all the messaging in place so that we didn't bungle it, and that we were really clear about, what was happening, how it was happening, and how people could still engage and be involved with the event and really make it a success. So we actually notified everybody probably a week before the event, on that Saturday before. So yeah, it was a scramble.
Catherine, this was also fairly early on, so I imagine that you must have been in the throes of panic as well. What did you think when Soaring Owls came to you and said, do we think we need to take this virtual?
Yeah, so with their event being right around the corner when that decision was made to make the switch was definitely somewhat of a concern. But as soon as we had a chance to reevaluate, it was really apparent that because they decided to utilize the platform as much as possible from the beginning, that making the transition to a fully online event was not going to be as challenging for them. So going into it, I felt fully confident that they were going to do a great job with a successful event.
Fabulous. All right, so with that then, Catherine, will you walk us through the fundraising components that the team decided on?
Absolutely. So originally, they had a really fun program planned along with a silent auction. There was going to be a wine pull. They did a heads or tails style raffle. They do a live auction. And from running previous events on GiveSmart in the past, they really wanted to streamline all of these fundraising components through the site. And that's what they did. They set all of these up as items. And as they were in the process of setting those up, they let me know that the main thing they really wanted to improve on from last year was pushing pre-registration and really engaging with guests. My response to them was that communication is really key in all of this, and their response to that was to take it and run with it. So I know we'll dive more into this in a couple of minutes, but yeah, before COVID and after, they did a really fantastic job reaching out to their audience. They put together a strong communication strategy with texts and emails that were going to go out. They created some fantastic informational docs with the auction details and updates like you can see here. And then they also put together numerous social media posts, and all of it was done with really fun and light language, which I think the viewers really enjoyed.
Terrific.
Yeah, and so while their site was open for ticket sales, another feature they utilized was enabling items to be donated through their home screen. And from the feedback I got from Wes, this ended up being a great asset. They were really pleased to see items being contributed from willing donors, and a couple of them were expecting.
I love that. So question on the ticket sales, Wes, what happened with those purchases?
Yeah, we were, as Kristen mentioned, we got together to kind of figure out all the communication, and that was a big question for us, is how are we going to communicate to folks in a way that is polite but hopeful that they could turn those tickets into donations. And that's how we framed it. We basically said, we are so thankful to our sponsors. We're so thankful to those of you who've already purchased tickets, keeping in mind a lot of folks kind of purchased them at last minute. So there, some of the tickets had been purchased, some had not. And we included that initial message out to everyone, just saying, hey, for those of you who have already purchased tickets, we are happy to convert those into donations. If you would like us not to do that, please contact us. And so we kind of put it on them. We did it the same way that I think that we did with sponsors. We recognized the sponsors within that email and basically kind of said, hey, thank you so much. Hey, ticket purchasers, thank you so much. If you want to get in touch with us, if there's anything you want to do there, you can. But the assumption that we made very obvious in that communications is we're going to be keeping this money and we're going to be using this money for the kids of the school. And we thank you for, hopefully agreeing to that. So we put it in their shoes, and nobody contacted us to get their money back.
Oh my God. I love that. That's really great. Okay, now this is a fun aspect that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how they can take this virtual. So Catherine, fill us in.
Yeah, the guests of this event really enjoy the wine pull and the raffle. It's a lot of fun for them. And from the beginning, the Soaring Owl team planned to allow guests to purchase these on their phone pre-event. So really, with the way they were set up, not a whole lot had to be changed when they made the pivot to fully online. One thing that was a little bit unique, a lot of the time we will set up a wine pull as an instant item, but Wes actually decided he wanted to do it as a raffle item so that he could offer different price levels, one bottle for $20, 2 bottles for $35, and he actually used the numbers from the raffle report to correspond to bottles of the same number to keep the integrity of the random pool, which I thought was very innovative.
Yeah, and you had an unexpected, like a good problem to have there, Wes?
Yeah, we did. So I didn't really think about the fact that we had 75, I think, bottles of wine that had been donated. And we went through the weekend, and by Sunday morning, we conducted most of the activity all through the weekend. By Sunday morning, I went and checked, and we had already sold 115 bottles. So 40 bottles more than we had, which was great. So I went ahead and cut off the wine wall at that point, and then went to Total Wine, one of our in-kind sponsors, the next week, and picked up another 40 bottles of wine so that we could make everyone whole. But yeah, good problem to have when we have that much demand for wine, especially in a situation where, as it turns out, everybody wants wine these days. So we were happy to be able to oblige.
Love it. That's really great. Okay, Catherine, I know sponsors are a big deal, and there have been a lot of questions about that. So how did we handle sponsors here?
Yeah, so they have a lot of great sponsors who contribute to this event. And to give some of them recognition, they created sponsor ads. These were displayed both on their homepage and on the items page, and all of them were linked to each organization's own website. So put them right at the fingertips of the users, which I think was absolutely fantastic.
And Kristen or Wes, how did this go over with sponsors? Because I know that's a challenge.
Yeah, Kristen, I'll take a crack at this, and please jump in. So we had done something similar last year, but I don't think we had really emphasized it with the sponsors that were getting sponsored on the website. Because traditionally this has been, a live event. We've expected to have, banners. We have multiple banners at the event. So when we pivoted, we really just emphasized when we had conversations with the sponsors that please don't worry. We're going to have more people looking at this site than we would otherwise. We're going to have more eyes looking at your brand and potentially clicking through, to Catherine's point, than we would at a live event. So just, helping the sponsors really see the benefit in the way that we were promoting them, not only on the site, but in the communications that Kristen and Kara put together.
Yeah, I would say definitely, in addition to, all of the logos being on the GiveSmart site, we really made an effort in our social media to be, displaying all of their logos. We had the emails. We had several different ways that we were showcasing sponsors and linking to them, and really making sure that everybody knew who was helping to support this event.
Great, perfect. All right, so we covered anything to add here on sponsors via social, Catherine?
Just another great example of how they gave those sponsors a lot of great recognition. They put out really clear ads on their social media, and doubling it up, the more you can put that out there, the better.
Perfect, and a great way to thank them as well. Okay, let's talk about communication and social a little bit more. I know is Pat involved with looking at the data with a lot of these customers. The communication piece seems to be like make or break, isn't it, Catherine?
Oh, absolutely. The communication is key. That is the way to connect with your viewers and keep them engaged. Perfect.
All right, let's talk a little bit about, so Kristen, I know you guys, this was your second year with GiveSmart. So donors were kind of already familiar with the system. Tell us how you took advantage of that and keeping them engaged.
Yeah, it was great. We actually, we had started our communications pretty early on anyway, and had some information up on our website, and we're sort of lightly touching on it in social. We obviously ramped everything up a lot more when it came down to the wire, and we knew that we were going to be virtual. But we basically used our website and our emails to, give everybody some sort of step-by-step instructions about what you need to do to get registered and to participate, and make sure that that was really sort of top of mind and people were getting through that first step. But then what we also did was include information consistently about, having them share a link to the auction with other people. That, and we did this a little bit last year with GiveSmart, but we really focused on it this year as well. Sharing that link with the grandparents who want to help support the school, or, basically anybody, because now, always anybody could have participated, but it seems so much more important now that we really get, more participants, and they didn't need to be in Atlanta or, right in our neighborhood. So
huge. And then how were you able to, I think you guys were able to actually grow your reach via social, yes?
Yeah, we did. It was great. Actually, the night of the event, we were consistently posting again, across the day before and the day of, we were doing several posts, and definitely during the auction on Saturday and Sunday, we were doing, several different posts, and especially on Instagram, we found that it was really successful. We had our some of our sponsors and some of the people who had donated auction items that were trying to get those, auction items bid up. They were actually helping us by doing their own posts, referencing which auction items were available, and trying to sort of gin up the bids for us. So I think that was really helpful in growing that reach beyond, the people that were obviously going to be there anyway. They'd already bought their tickets and sure they were going to check in and bid on something.
And then you also added some, I mean, you're certainly a creative director in real life, which is fun, but tell me how your donors reacted to being involved this way.
I think they loved it. We were really pushing for people to be involved, especially the Saturday night of the event, when normally people would have been with us, dressed up, having cocktails, having a lot of fun. So that's why we wanted to keep kind of the fun party feeling sort of throughout that evening for sure. We wanted people, showing us how they were celebrating the evening. We kind of set it up as, show us your own Sophie party, at home. And make sure to tag us. We thought the hashtag was really important to sort of get that community going, and we had a lot of people engaging with us, sharing their pictures and tagging us on stuff, so it was pretty cool.
Love it. All right, and then Catherine, you spend so much time planning and trying to get donors engaged, whether it's bidding or donating, purchasing, whatever, and then the night ends, and then what?
Yeah, so this group, they did such great communications as we've seen, and then they finished it off strong, which was fantastic. And as far as post-event communications goes, they really did an amazing job. They sent out an email to let them know the amount they raised and what it was going to do for the organization. They gave another shout out to the sponsors and another link so they could plug them in. And then they gave the item redemption instructions because, as we know, this is a different time now. And so that was informing guests and helping their admins a little bit as far as reaching out to people goes.
Terrific. So throughout, Kristen, I'll toss this to you, but tell me about donor reactions. Were people hesitant at first? Was it hard to get them involved? What kind of feedback did you get?
I think at the very first there was hesitation. I think that was a little bit because we were so right at the beginning of this and everybody was freaking out that their kids were going to be home forever. And they were like, wow, this is this whole new world. Like, what is going to happen? And like, oh my God, Sophie's night. But as we got into it, I think that they were really excited and thought it was a fun way to participate. I know that even outside of the social channels that I was kind of manning that night, you know, I was having separate text conversations with a lot of different people who, you know, were talking about how fun it was and kind of egging each other on. So I think that in the end, you know, they had a lot of fun doing it. I think the numbers showed that they had fun doing it. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Wes, about your experiences and what you've heard.
I don't want to be repetitive with what you said, but I will say the sense from people that the day that we announced was like, oh man, are you serious? It's like, we already have a babysitter.
Yeah.
Right? And as our nation woke up to what was going on and day by day, things really crystallized in terms of the, you know, the level of crisis that we were experiencing. I think we got a lot of kind of kudos for making that decision and not keeping people, you know, waiting until the last minute, but really firmly saying, hey, this isn't the right thing to do. And instead, here's the right thing to do, right? And by the time we got to the event, just to echo Kristen's point, people were really excited about doing this in a different way. And I remember thinking, and so kind of putting your brains back a month ago, I remember thinking at the time, oh, sweet, people will just get together in big groups at people's houses. And by the time it got to the end of the week, it was like, no, people will not be doing that. People will be staying in their own houses. Mm-hmm. And so we had to continue to adjust kind of what our mindset was of what the experience for the end user would be. And, you know, luckily, and this is, you know, just how I feel, luckily, because of the way the site works, we were able to just continue to kind of pivot a little bit at a time in terms of what we would use, how we would communicate. I mean, we were editing the items and editing kind of the way that we would present text messages through the event all the way up until Friday afternoon, until the moment that we started.
Yeah, amazing. And you guys were really at the forefront of this, you know, so folks making this decision now, you know, have a whole different set of data to be deciding. But one of the questions, and Wes, I'll toss this to you, one of the questions we get from customers a lot is, you know, are people really able to do this and, you know, just not get a miserable total? You know, so what was your experience as far as the results of what your expectations were with your Plan B from what you were hoping to do with your Plan A in-person event?
Yeah, so we had a mindset change, right? You think about the typical event for us, which is a bunch of parents of elementary school kids who want to come out and party and invariably are going to imbibe and spend more money than they had planned to spend, right? Which we're all, you know, rubbing our hands together with anticipation for that kind of thing. And we had to change that mindset to how do we engage people over 48 hours, right? From Friday to Sunday, and how do we increase the base? So as Kristen discussed, it's reaching out to people and telling them to tell friends, like really pushing the need to have more and more people with eyes on the site. And that really, I think, was the key. So in terms of success, in terms of totals, last year, just to share numbers with you in terms of net revenue, last year our event, you know, on-site, live auction, all of that, raised about $70,000 for the school, which is pretty close to the highest we've ever done. This year, completely pivoting, you know, 9 days before the event to an online version, we were able to do 62,000. So I was crossing my fingers, hoping that we would hit 50,000. And through the hard work of Kristen and other folks on the board to really get the word out and again, change our mindset, we were able to really very closely meet our goal to what it would have been at a live auction. So extremely happy with the results.
Absolutely. And Kristen, just based on the stuff that you've shared about growing your base via social, I'm wondering, regardless of whether it's live or in person or live or online a year from now, you all probably have new tactics and new ways to reach folks who might donate that you wouldn't have had if you weren't forced into this decision. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. I think that it really sort of, showed the power of good communications and really spreading the word in some smart ways. And I think that we will have some people, next year and in the coming years, both as donors, as sponsors, as, participants in all kinds of different ways that are going to be supporting us.
Perfect. All right. So Kristen and Wes and Catherine, we are going to turn it over to Patrick at this point to share some data. You guys take a breath, and everybody else keep your questions coming fast and furious, and we'll take like 15 or 20 minutes to answer questions.
Yep. So again, this is Wes and the team just did a truly amazing job, and so as we're looking at some of the data and some of the things stuck out. In particular, when they mentioned trying to take a look at their 2019 efforts, did a year-over-year comparison, and we saw, hey, silent auction-wise, there was about a 2% growth in terms of the revenue, which is always good to see. It's a comparable amount of items, and so then we looked into some other things, and it was great to see, talking about the social and the impact of people sharing the links and making it more communal definitely worked, because there was a 46% increase in terms of donors participating on the site. But the one that really jumped out to me is what we have on the page here. There's a feature in the platform, the watch this item. I wish we had a better name, because it's just saying watching in the next few minutes. I apologize in advance, but for donors, obviously we want them to bid and all things like that, but if they want to, hey, I got a budget and so I want to look at a couple of items, see how they go through the course of the evening, or if they are savvy veterans and they want to auction snap and come in at the last second to get it, they can hit this little star that you see at the top of the screen there, watch the item, and similar to when they bid in the system, it goes into this kind of my activity queue to make it easier. So when we looked at it, it was awesome to see, kind of going left to right here, that this year 92% of the items got watched by people. So what jumped off the page to me when we saw it is that the team did a truly fantastic job of really curating to their donor base. They knew what people were interested in, and they were able to find those kind of items because people were active at it. And so we saw 92% of items this year compared to 2019 in the blue, where it was only 74%. And then not only were more items, but there was more people watching them per item, as we see with the 4.29, and just almost a double and then some in terms of the amount of watching people were doing. But and then if we look at it from the people perspective, this year they added 40 people to watching in there, and obviously the goal is to get people to bid and all that and generate fundraising revenue for the organization. But there are those people who similar to the picture with Wes and the kids, if the kids get a little crazy or something comes up, maybe somebody forgot to bid, but having this data and knowing these people, one, it allows you to curate items that are going to generate revenue, but then secondarily, making sure that you engage people. And I've said for a long time to folks that one of the benefits, if you look at, oh, what if somebody bid but they didn't win, you want to make sure you engage them. If Patrick watched a bunch of items and something came up, or especially right now with people having a lot going on at one moment, I think it's a good opportunity to make sure you capture that data and really go with the mantra of kind of measuring twice and cutting once. And so I think it was just awesome to see and just reaffirm. And more than anything is there's so much data at your disposal these days, whether it's our platform or anything in the tech space. But I think using it from 2019 to make a dent in 2020. Again, I couldn't credit the team at Sornells more, and I think the little things they did to get ready is what put them in a position to kind of make the pivot when they did.
Patrick, before you jump to the next slide, I just want to make a quick dot connection here, and that is how many people come to these events intending to donate and don't win the thing. So they leave your event and they haven't donated even though they intended to donate. And there are a lot of ways to circle back with that, folks, because you have the data. And we don't need to go into the details now, but feel free to ask our team. Anyone from Catherine to anyone on the team is happy to help you with ideas there. Thanks, Patrick. All right, Google Analytics, Patrick?
Yep. So this one was definitely fun, and as we were getting through the process of collaborating and getting ready for today's call, Obviously, one of the things that really shone through is the team using social. And so we wanted to validate it beyond just, hey, it looks good. And I think it's awesome to see that brought more people in. But we're curious to dive into it a little bit. And so starting at the top, there was, if you look at kind of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram right there, the 367 represents, that is 367 times where somebody was on a Facebook page, clicked the link to the fundraising campaign, and so their kind of source was Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So to see that, almost about 400 times people went from a social page to the actual fundraising campaign is the best validation that we were able to find, that the value is there. And the nice thing, about social networks, it's all free. And so there's, a bunch of different resources and how you can use it. But I think this team, did a truly fantastic job. And kind of the top chart there, as we would expect, the most amount of traffic from a social media page to the actual campaign was on the day of the event, which is what we hope. It'd probably be a little weird if it was like 2 weeks after, but I think that was great to see. And then at the bottom, we looked at just all traffic in general to the actual campaign. And again, the spike at the top there is the actual date that the event took place for them. And then the one thing that stood out where we have the arrow is there's a spike that occurred on March 15th. And so we're looking at, Catherine and I were looking at our notes. Well, they made the pivot a few days before that, so we're trying to figure it out. And then when we looked into it, is they had an awesome Instagram post that was on March 15th. That is one of the coolest ones that I've seen. And I think just showed, if I'm not mistaken, we have it in the chat, I believe. And it was somebody, bidding either from their phone or a computer. And I think just showed donors, hey, we're excited to do this. It's easy, and really just emphasizing the simplicity for the donors. So again, it was awesome to see that the traffic worked. And, I think Wes made a very good point at the beginning, talking about sponsors and putting them online. To me, this is the proof, in the pudding, so to say, that, people came to the site and they did it. So I think in whatever way is unique and authentic to, your own organization, doing these kind of little things in these days with so many social media sites and everything, each has their own nuances, but it was great to see again that it did work. And I know that this might be a little bit more on the advanced side, but as a tech company, data talks is one of our core mantras. So we just wanted to share it and again, congratulate the team on an awesome job. Well done.
Perfect. Thanks, Patrick. So y'all, we have a ton of questions coming in. So let's see how many we can get through. Wes, I'll start with you. How did the guests obtain their wine bottles? The important question, right? With social distancing and stay-at-home order. And can you clarify how the wine pull worked?
Yeah. So answer the first question is, as you can imagine, we distributed them slowly and carefully. Our school district is represented by probably 4 or 5 kind of major neighborhoods. And so we kind of identified somebody in each neighborhood that could hold on to the wine for folks in their neighborhood to maybe walk by and pick up from the porch, or potentially have dropped off by that person on their porch, on the winner's porch. But we went very slowly and carefully with that. And it's worth noting that the day that the event closed and we, stated a little bit about the results and thanked everyone, we also very specifically said, give us some time, bear with us and be patient as we work to get you not only your wine items, but your silent auction items, your live items, because we wanted to do it the right way. We wanted to do it in a way that was considerate of, how everybody was feeling at the time. In terms of the wine wall and how it pulled, we basically took the list of all of the raffle winners, because again, the wine item was a raffle item. And for those of you who are not familiar with that, on GiveSmart, it assigns a number to each person. So the first person who buys it is number 1, number 2. And then we just use a random number generator online to then take that total, which was 115 or so people who purchased, and said, put them in random order. And then parallel, we numbered each bottle of wine that we had. And so then that was our way to say, hey, we've truly been random, just as if you had pulled a random bottle from the wall. If you were there in person, you have effectively done that virtually. You have been assigned random numbers that correlate to these numbers of the bottles. So hopefully that makes sense.
Perfect. Kristen, any school admin have pushback regarding sponsors, live auction, online auction, any extra components? Did you have any pushback there?
No, we didn't. I mean, we have a really good relationship with our school administration, and also Wes may be able to speak better to this, but we've been very much in coordination with them about how this event goes, how it's promoted, especially, considering that yes, there is a wine wall, there's typically alcohol, but they were very supportive of all of this.
Great.
Yeah, I would just add to that, this is a neighborhood that celebrated our new principal a year and a half ago with a party at the brewery, with a meet and greet there. So we have maintained a pretty good, set of guidelines around, what's done on campus and what's done, really at the school. It's one of the reasons we set up our own nonprofit, is so we would have an arm's length relationship from the school. And I think that's helped us avoid, we're not a PTA, so we're not having a school event when we do this. We're having an event for a nonprofit that supports the school.
And Wes, did you guys incorporate a live component via Facebook or the event website?
We didn't. And Maureen, that's one of those things that I've looked back and questioned ever since the event, is whether that would have been fruitful for us to do. I think if we had had more time, if we had given ourselves additional weeks to plan, we might have tried to make that happen. The reality is, as I mentioned, we went from the beginning of that week thinking, oh, there will be a bunch of people at people's houses, maybe we can do something, to then, what's the challenge associated with getting everybody up and running? And it was lower down the list of priorities. So it's not something. And so I'm kind of looking back and saying, gosh, what if we had had more time? And I certainly would challenge anybody who's listening and still planning an event to consider what you might be able to pull off there, because I do think that would have only improved the engagement that we would have had with the virtual participants.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that, we were sort of also so at the beginning of this that it was not the daily norm for everybody to be on Zoom calls all day and to be on, Netflix hangouts and sort of doing all the ways around these.
Great. Yeah, and there's another virtual question coming up in a sec. But Kristen, the question is, how did you pull the mission or program into the virtual component? I know that tugging the heartstrings is important.
It is. I mean, that's part of it. The line we always like to use is it's for the kids. But we're also a really fun group. And I think that, our constituency knows that. And so it was a balance of, really stressing the importance of having this be a successful event this year, even though it was completely different from what people are used to, because it is such a big night of fundraising. But also, sort of keying up that fun and making sure that was an element that was going to get people to want to engage. I think our base is very pro the kids, very pro the school. But it was actually, I think, more of a matter of creating the fun and the engagement versus having to sell our mission too hard for this particular one.
Absolutely. And then asking for some clarity, Catherine, you could probably answer this. Sorry, I've missed this. I'm unclear as to the timeline for the event. What part went Friday to Sunday and what happened on Saturday night online?
Yeah, so they had their silent auction open from Friday at 5:00 p.m. till Sunday at 5:00 p.m. And in the middle of that, on Saturday night, they did their live auction portion. And even though it was not a virtual event, as being live streamed, what they did was they converted their live auction items into silent auction items. They put those in a category called Premier. And they had them open for the 2 hours. They really pushed up communications, letting people know, hey, these are the special items. These were going to be the live items. They are really awesome experiences. And so that got people excited. And so that's what happened on Saturday. They had the 2-hour live auction. And then, it closed up on Sunday night.
Great. Wes or Kristen, what did you do for an auction item that was affected by the shutdown? The questioner is saying we have a ton of restaurant gift cards and some of those places may be shut down for now. Did you guys run into that?
Yeah, I know. I'll take a crack at it. Kristen, please jump in. We kind of shrugged. We were so early in the process that we were like, okay, let's put them out there and see if people bid. And people did bid. I think that a lot of the restaurant items that we have, we are lucky. We've got a lot of good, strong restaurants in the neighborhood and in the area in Atlanta that we felt like, yeah, these guys are hopefully going to weather the storm. But ultimately, I think the best you can do in this situation is put them out there. And if there's not somebody who bids on them, there's not somebody who bids on them. But if there is, we are all adults. If we're looking at an item that we say, gosh, this is $100 gift card to a great restaurant in Atlanta, I'm going to put $50 on it, and hopefully they're still around and open back up in a few months. And so we didn't have any conversations with restaurants or anything like that. Frankly, we didn't have time to, but ultimately we said, hey, we're going to put it out there and see what happens.
Great. Next question is a little specific. How much of your revenue was already in hand prior to having to pivot to virtual? And along with that, what percentage of your revenue is auction versus ticket sales? Just off the top of your head.
Gosh, off the top of my head. So of this, I would say 62,000 or so that we pulled in for the event, about 30,000 of that was based on sponsor. Either sponsors of the event that are, kind of your restaurants, your local companies, or parents who had already purchased kind of in the fall, through a separate fundraiser to include tickets to the event. And so I know that's a bit unclear, but the total amount that we kind of already had in hand was about 30,000. Ticket sales. A lot of the attendees, as I mentioned, they are part of a fall fundraiser where they give money to the school and as a result get like 2 tickets or 4 tickets. And so ticket sales, we probably sell, I don't know, Kristen, about 100 tickets of the 200, and we sell them, I mean, I'm doing the quick math here in my head, at $75 a piece, so 7,500 of that remaining, 3,000 or so. But less, a lot of people didn't end up buying tickets. And so I think where we ended up with was probably 22,000 or so coming from silent auction, and probably another 10,000, maybe less than that, coming through the premier items. Excuse me.
Got it. Patrick, what type of auction items do you suggest now that many restaurants, sporting events are closed? Just high level, and then I'm sure we might have a resource on that.
Yep, absolutely. I know we do. I think, the first thing is using everything at your disposal. I think we've seen some cool people, and hey, this one group, they were going to have a tropical theme, and when they couldn't have the physical event, they auctioned off the decorations. And we've seen people, my favorite of all time, I think, is where people, there was a bunch of Amazon packages, and so they just threw them into a random box. So I think, getting creative overall. But then I think, if you do have any of those kind of ticket related or experiences, if you are able to confirm the expiration date or different things like that, is always good. I think gift cards at the moment, as we talk about businesses and sponsors being impacted, if there are, gift cards where you can benefit the organizations that have been there for you and try to drum up some interest, I think are good. And then, depending upon your organization, for schools, for example, raffle off the parking spots or different things. So I think, I know that's a lot of information all at once, and definitely, I think depending upon your constituent base, knowing the people in your geography, it can be a little bit different, but certainly in the follow-up, we will make sure to include some better examples overall.
Great. I just had one for Kristen. How hard was it to describe, I'm modifying this, but how challenging was it to describe your items or visually display them to attract interest without the in-person viewing of them? Like, was that challenging?
I don't think it was that challenging. I think that we had, some good descriptions written up actually on our GiveSmart site. And then what we did was in social media, we worked harder probably visually. I think that on the site for the auction, we showed logos mainly. But in social media, we were able to do a little bit more romance with the descriptions and with the imagery that we were using to highlight, some of those more big ticket items and the more exciting things, especially. But I think that, I think that it worked with the tools that we had.
Great. We're going to go another 5 minutes. We have plenty of questions. We're not going to get to all of them, but Wes, any math on how much did you save on the cost for the venue, food, beverage, et cetera, by not holding it
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Back your neck.
I got lots of math. I'll keep it light.
Okay.
$8,000 for the venue. They immediately said, if you can't come, you can't come. Can we book you for next year? Can we just move that commitment out a year? And we said, absolutely. Same thing for video booth. Same thing for catering. We had Proof of the Pudding, which is the largest caterer in the Southeast. They gave us a huge discount on catering in the first place, and then they came right back around and said, of course, we're not going to hold you to that. We'll do it with you when you're ready. So we were very fortunate, having built some strong relationships. I mentioned the brewery, Scofflaw Brewery. Shout out to Scofflaw Brewery in Atlanta. They're in our neighborhood. They supported us for years. They've got 2 boys at our school. And it was like, well, yeah, we would have given you beer for this. We'll give you beer next time, right? So we've built relationships that made that very, very painless. And we're excited now. We've already got booked for next year. We know what our date is next year. We're way ahead of the curve. So we have leveraged some good relationships and some really, really big hearts of those people who were gonna help us make this happen, to make sure we're making a great event happen next year.
Great. I'm going to come back to you on that in a second. Kristen, since Facebook was the main social network bringing traffic to your event by your guests, do you think the age of the guests were impacted or affected that? Did it reach all ages? Kind of what's your sort of top of mind feedback to that?
Yeah, so I mean, our constituents are mainly, parents at the school and sort of surrounding neighborhoods, right? So we are targeting not an older crowd, but definitely a Facebook crowd. We're not targeting 20-year-olds for this event. Facebook, probably of the 3 channels, is the one where we get the most engagement anyway. We do get a fair amount of engagement on Instagram, but it's obviously, you can't have the links to click through. We had put our link to the auction site in our profile, so people were able to get it there, but for each post, it's a little bit rough, right? I will say that we also boosted most of our posts that we were doing, or at least the very important ones, really starting a month out. And then as we got closer to it, the really important ones, we were doing it much more heavily. And we did not do an age target. We only did a geo target on it. So that's sort of how we did it. I think that the results and Facebook being the highest engagement is really just reflective of our audience in the first place. So I think that there may have been some of the reach that, spread might not have been the Facebook audience. I think that, there's probably just probably more of the Instagram and word of mouth would have brought in anybody outside of that demo.
Cool. That's good to know. I want to get to a couple more questions. Catherine, how did we do registration for this event?
Yeah, so registration, they did all mobily, and they sent out texts ahead of time as well as emails letting everyone know, hey, this is our link, go ahead and get registered. They really pushed to do it as early as possible. So all registration was done online, pushing emails and texts with the link to register.
Great. And then Kristen and Wes, maybe the $64,000 question. Would you look at holding it virtual again versus going back to live, even if it's back to normal in next March? So anything you would do differently?
Kristen, you want to go first?
I mean, I'm at a point just personally where I miss giving people a hug right now. And I would really love to do that. Yeah, I think we would absolutely consider it, depending on what's going on. I really think that having a Facebook Live component or doing something that's bringing people together the night of would be really, really key for us if we were going to do this virtually again.
Yeah, I mean, I would say right now my answer is no. We want to go back to live. We have too much fun to do this way every year. But absolutely, if the question is, will we take this experience and the learnings from this experience to do the virtual side better? The answer is absolutely. We will do so many things different to drive even more success. I am confident that we can really exceed our targets next year with the combination of what we've learned now and the ability to come back with the launch.
I love that. Final question. If you had honorees, how did you celebrate and feature them?
We did have one honoree. We have a Benefactor of the Year award that we give every year. And again, shout out to our local Scofflaw Brewing Company, because this year they were going to be our honoree. They were our honoree. Luckily, I didn't have to go get the plaque made, since I didn't have to actually hand it to them. I still haven't done that. Don't tell them I said that. But what we did is we, in multiple emails before, during, and after the event, we called out that they were our Benefactor of the Year. I would say that that was kind of the best we could do given the situation. I thought about kind of getting a picture taken with them or whatever, but as we got closer to the event, we felt like even that was probably in slightly poor taste given the situation. So that's how we handled it. Kristen, anything I'm forgetting there in terms of honorees or?
Yeah, in addition to the email, we did, to the mentions in the emails, we did a special social post right as the event closed, just talking about them and what they had done for us.
Good call.
Lovely. So I think we could go on for another hour, but we will. So everyone who has asked a question, we promise we will get back to you. We spread these out to our team, and certainly any that we can't answer, or that Catherine can't, we would go back to Kristen and Wes. But Kristen and Wes, thank you so much for joining today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Absolutely, our pleasure. And I will say thank you to Catherine for making our event the success that it was. And seriously, the fact that we were comfortable with the site, the fact that the site had everything on it already, it made it a breeze for us. So thanks for giving us the opportunity to share the experience.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Catherine's a star. And Catherine, thanks to you and Patrick for joining. This was lovely.
Yeah, thank you guys. I love the experience.
Absolutely.
All right, so thanks to all of you for joining. We are fans of your missions, and we are rooting for you, and we are here for any questions. We've got my email in chat. I'm sure you get emails from me all the time, but if you have questions and you can't reach someone else, please don't hesitate to follow up with me, and y'all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.